Welcome to the Jusmusic podcast. I am your host, Jalen, and we are back with another episode of the podcast. Very, very excited for this guest that we have. He is a contemporary composer based in Warrington, England, and he's written over 30 compositions. He's released 4 albums. He's had airplay on BBC Radio 6. And he's also received a complimentary letter from the Stockhausen in 1999 and received praise from former King Crimson member Marcus Reuter. And has received great feedback, positive feedback from other colleagues and people in his area and in his space of music. We have Mr. Lewis Gill. How you doing, man?
Great, thank you, Jalen. Thank you for having me.
So the listeners have an idea. You're based in England and you're in Warrington, England. So you were born and raised there?
Yeah, I've never left.
Awesome.
All my life. Born and bred, yeah.
Awesome. And so it's really cool to chat with you because I know when you reached out to us, it was through our email address. And you said you found us on YouTube, right? How did that come about?
By chance, I was looking at podcasts, basically, various different music podcasts, and yours was one of the first that showed up in a search, basically. So, music podcasts was just generally, because they're always entertaining, you see, very entertaining. And yours was on the first sort of Google list, basically, yeah. And then I clicked on it and I found it really interesting.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for, giving us a look and giving us a listen and reaching out to us. And now here we are having this conversation, man. So I just kind of want to jump right in, man. So tell me, a little bit about your story. How did you get into music and particularly classical music and composing?
Yeah. Well, originally I was just a guitar player, rock guitar player or progressive rock guitar player. Starting about 35 years ago. And I was in various sort of experimental rock groups over the years. And I became increasingly drawn to bands that had sort of classical influences. And I became more and more interested in classical music, checking it out, hearing it. And I was a little bit lost to start with. But then I kind of found my way eventually. And then at some point I thought to myself, hang on, I think I'd like to have a go at this myself, right to being a composer. And I didn't actually do anything significant about it till last year, though. Prior to that, I'd just been thinking about it and being in progressive rock bands and so forth. So I only really became a composer kind of properly last year, really, late last year.
Yeah, and I read that about you. You got into really composing last year. And for you to, write over 30 compositions and receive airplay on BBC Radio. And, I've checked out your YouTube channel. For you to, have that level of growth in just 1 year, that's really incredible, man. Really remarkable. So, and I know, you mentioned being a guitarist primarily, and playing in a lot of rock groups. And so I guess at what point, I guess last year, did you say, you know what, I'm just going to put my hat in composing and just see where it leads?
Yeah. Well, I've been toying with the idea for many, many years, 10 years or so. I guess years ago I wasn't quite ready because I had to sort of teach myself the theory side of things before I could actually become active as a composer. And also, you mentioned the fact that I've got 30 compositions so far on YouTube. Well, the truth is a lot of them go way back. It's just I've only just manifested them, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? So some of those chords and melodies go back 20, 30 years. So it's a lot of it's completely fresh material, but a lot of it's going back, digging out stuff that's been in my head for decades, melodies and so forth. But I think it was last year. I know this might sound ridiculous, but a friend of mine died, actually. He's only the same age as me. I lost a friend about this time last year. and he was only 55, and it kind of made me think, for God's sake, Lewis, if you're going to do this, do it now. I don't know how long I'm going to be around. So it's all very well dreaming about it, talking about it. Just get on with it, for God's sake. Don't procrastinate anymore. And it was my friend's death, really, my friend's passing, that was the kind of catalyst in a way that kind of made me think, God, get on with it, for God's sake. You might not be around to do it in in the future. So awful as it sounds, that was kind of the one of the main starting guns for me. Mm.
Yeah, and yeah, wow. First, my condolences to you, and my apologies to hear about your
Yeah.
friend.
I hate to put a damper on the, but
No, it's all
you
good.
know what I mean. Yeah,
It's all good, but I say that because it's always interesting how unfortunate events in our lives can inspire us to create. Um,
yeah,
and for you, to be where you are in life and say, dang, I just lost a friend of mine. And, nobody plans for it. It's kind of like, how do I respond to this? And it's like, well, I know I have always had this dream to do this. So,
yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So I guess so. My question is, so your friend, were they also a musician, or were they? Gotcha.
Yeah, my friend that died last year, he was a guitar player, and like sort of rockabilly type guitar player, not a composer, not remotely into classical music or anything like that, but a lovely bloke and a sort of good guitar player, good musician. I'd known him since we were teenagers, and very suddenly he died. Very suddenly, he didn't become ill. It was just he was, I found out suddenly that he died. So it was a bit of a blow, obviously. Well, a hell of a blow. And like I said, that was the kind of kick up the backside, so to speak, to get me active as a composer.
Yeah. Wow. That's something. But it's powerful too, and how it's inspired you to go ahead and go after your dream. And I think a lot of us can learn from that, because so many, I mean, we all have dreams and we all have things that we want to do. We want
Are you a
to,
musician yourself, Jalen?
yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. Yes, sir, I am. Marco and I are both musicians. Marco, he's a DJ, and I am a bass player, trombonist, keyboardist, and I sing as well. And Marco and I both produce music. So,
Pretty
and
versatile, yeah. Trombone.
thank you. I've never tipped my hat in composing, but I remember taking like classes in college and learning about composers and composition in classical music, and there's a lot of value in it.
Yeah.
And it's it's
It's
interesting.
a lot of value, but not much money.
Yeah, yeah, and that's another thing too, right? Talking about music is like, okay, this is something that I love doing. I love the expression. I love the art. I love the value. Now, um, okay, how can I do this sustainably with income, right? And that's always a challenge for us as musicians.
Yeah.
Which there's more ways now than there were back then, like in the past. But it's still something where you have to really work hard and also work smart.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. But
Well, I mean, to be honest, Jen, I've actually got a day job that's got nothing to do with music. And so until I can actually pay the bills solely from music, I'm going to keep having a day job.
yeah,
So I mean, to become financially secure purely from being a composer, I think that might be a long way off.
can you talk about that? Because I know there's a bunch of conservatories over there in England, music conservatories, and we have here some in the States in universities where, you have students go to college or they go to a conservatory and they study music, and they may go for composition, they may go for a performance, whether it be with a string instrument, a horn instrument, vocals, or they may go for music education. And can you talk about, what the importance of understanding, hey, while there is a lot of money that can be made through this, you should be very, very careful to have a plan in place, put a plan together, because it sounds like that's the mindset that you had.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way in the world I could rely on this solely for financial income. Yeah, there's always, well, I suspect there's probably always going to be a day job that's got nothing to do with music. I'm not a music teacher. I'm self-taught, so I'm not a graduate in music either. So it's not as if I could be a music teacher. And to be honest with you, I mean, it's rewarding without any financial gain. It's just extremely rewarding just to get feedback from people, praise. I've written just a few, like 3 film scores. It's really interesting, very, very enjoyable work. Even without any financial gain, I just love doing it, but who knows, maybe one day I might make some money.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and I think what a lot of musicians don't understand is that when you decide to more so focus on, your art, your craft, and focus on how you can serve people through that genuinely, wholeheartedly, then you'll start to see that the money will come in. And it takes time, but after a while, it just starts to come in consistently. Because I think that's what makes artists um, so valuable, and that's why their fan base is so important. Because when the fans feel as though, hey, this artist is genuinely putting together great music because they care so much about the music, they're like, of course, I'll be willing to spend however much on a ticket to go see them at a concert, or I'll be willing to buy it on vinyl or CD or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I think as well. I mean, there's a bit of a tradition with composers. All the composers I know are music graduates who have teaching jobs in music, are music themselves lecturers or professors in music. So there's the salary to pay the bills, and the composing is something else they do as well. I'm not in a position like that. I do plan to really try and get into film scoring, writing film soundtracks. And that can be quite a lucrative business. Hopefully that will, if it does happen, I'd love to work for a big shot director, someone quite famous, David Lynch or someone like that, someone that's got a reputation.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder, that probably would be quite well paid, being a film score composer, But I would like to get into that. I've done 3 film scores so far, but they're very minor, small time stuff,
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up film scoring because I was listening to some of your YouTube channel, and I definitely felt like I was listening to music that would be really cool for a movie. So when thinking about film scoring, we all know like John Williams and Star Wars. Some others that come to mind for me is like Hans Zimmer, especially with the Dark Knight series. But who are some composers that have brought inspiration to you?
I mean, the 2 you just mentioned, definitely, but also Ennio Morricone, who wrote a lot of the spaghetti westerns, plus a couple of gangster films as well, like Once Upon a Time in America. He scored that as well, with De Niro and what have you. Jerry Goldsmith is a great film score composer. Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first Alien film as well. Very good film scorer. And over the years, going back, Bernard Herrmann as well was a great film score composer. Taxi Driver, Psycho, things like that. Some really, really good ones. So there's been some brilliant film score composers in the 20th century and the 20th. And Hans Zimmer, like you mentioned, Hans Zimmer, who actually tours with a whole ensemble now, which is incredible how he pulls that off. But he's done some fantastic scores, like Interstellar. He did, didn't he?
Yeah, great movie too.
Yeah, very, very good scores. Yeah, I like the idea of making film scores as well because you can be adventurous with it because you have to work to someone else's guidelines in a way. You have to know about the plot of the film and then design the music based on that plot. So it can be a really interesting and adventurous kind of way to work.
Oh yeah, and because with film scoring, I think it's adventurous, like you said, because now with film scoring, we're not only creating music for the listener, like the audience to listen to, but we're also creating music for the audience to visualize to as well, right? And we're also, creating music to appeal to the emotions that the audience may have at particular points in the movie, like in Interstellar, for example. There's so many scenes in that movie where it makes the viewer think and it makes the viewer feel, and the music plays such an important role in that. Even now, it's hard for me to even think, even though there was definitely a time, because I took a cinema class when I was in college at College of Charleston. We learned a lot about cinema and movies and filmmaking, but it's hard to imagine now watching a movie and there not being any type of music or score attached to it, because it's just so important. And then a lot of times the music is so seamless, you don't even realize that, oh, there's like a very, very heavy or well composed music at this point in the movie, because you're just so invested in the movie. But the thing is, that's what makes it so great.
Horror films especially.
Oh, yeah.
Like, say, for instance, the Saw franchise. I do love some horror films. I really would be quite passionate about writing horror film scores because I've always been very into dark music.
When I was
music. So I think I'd probably be better at writing horror film scores than I would at, say, writing a western or a sci-fi. Horror, I think, is something I really warm to. I'm drawn to that kind of nasty music or dark, disturbing or foreboding kind of music. I think I'm better at that than doing anything happy. I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, horror film scores I would especially like to get into.
Oh yeah. When I think about horror films, I think about Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers.
Or say John Carpenter films like Halloween and The Fog, where music is a very, you can't have a nice happy tune, obviously, in a film like that. It's got to be something that suits the nature of the plot, Excuse me.
Oh, yeah. And go ahead.
No, sorry, go on. Yeah.
I was gonna ask. So, talk about receiving airplay on BBC Radio.
Yep.
Like what? How did that experience come about?
Well, there's a show on a Sunday night, BBC Radio 6, called Stuart Maconie's Freak Zone, and I'm a big fan of the show. I always listen to it. Very interesting, far out experimental music he plays as well. So it's kind of in keeping with what I do. And I sent him a CD. I just sent him a CD, sent it to the broadcasting house where he works, and he liked it. And I got an email telling me that he'd be playing a track from it. So I was very, very pleased about that. Opened a few avenues as well. Only good has come from that, basically. I've had a lot more YouTube views since that radio airplay, and a few people contacted me as well. So yeah, it was very. I wish it could happen again, though. It's only been played on the radio once, so and that surprised me. So, but I'd love for it to happen again. Being on the radio is quite a big thing for me. Being on the radio,
it's crazy how we're always, one handshake away or one connection away from another opportunity. That'll, only get us closer to where we want to be. And I think that's awesome because I mean BBC Radio is a big thing, and BBC Radio 6, being able to get your music played on that station is awesome. And then I also read that so you've written 3 short film scores, also been interviewed and received positive album reviews in a New Jersey-based internet classical music magazine. I want you to expand on that because that's really, really cool too. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, it's called Gapplegate. Excuse me. It's run by a guy in New Jersey. He reviews modern classical music, basically. I've been friends with him on Facebook for a few years now, actually. Gregory Applegate Edwards, I think his name is. And he runs a website, it's a very, very good website that specializes in contemporary classical music. And I sent him a CD on the agreement that if he liked it, he would review it. And he did. I don't know if you've seen the review, but it's quite a brief one. But yeah, that's the New Jersey-based website magazine, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So I mean, when I get a review, it's like a pat on the back. It's that means a lot to me as well. It's just someone saying nice things about my music.
Absolutely. I think that's when you put together something that people appreciate and find value in. It's amazing. And I find that it's not necessarily the glory that excites you, but it's the inspiration and the impact, right? That excites you, through music. Because in music, some people would be like, oh yeah, like that song, that's a song that, helped me get through this hard time in my life. Or that's a song that I got married to. Or, this is a song that I played for my child when they were born. Music has this way of, bringing us all together and also reminding us of very important, valuable moments in our life.
Yeah, I mean, our whole memories are, 20% of our memories are music, I think. It really is like that. I can barely remember anything without some accompanying kind of music that happened at the time, events and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to think that some of my music might resonate with some people and, they'll listen to it during some kind of special occasion and then in the future it'll always remind them of that occasion. I don't know if that's happened yet, but yeah, I understand what you're saying 100%, yeah.
And I'm just I'm going through your Wikipedia page, man. Flying at High Noon, right? That you used to soundtrack that film, directed by Ethan Prescott.
Yeah, it's a spaghetti western, but filmed in Plymouth. Very short. He's a film student, basically, Plymouth University. So I think it is literally part of his degree, that making that film. And he wanted a score from me. I did the music to it. So I did a kind of, I deliberately did it in the style of the spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, the Ennio Morricone type scores. I deliberately did it in that style. And he was very pleased with it. You know, it's something I'm quite proud of, actually. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, I'm just looking at your resume, man. It's really remarkable. And you actually released music this year. You released um, first CD release, um,
Yeah.
Harold. I'm going to butcher this name.
Parochial Chamber Works. Yeah.
Parochial Chamber Works, inspired by Warrington, Volume One, on May 13th of this year. And then
Yeah.
you also had that same title, but a volume 2 released on SoundCloud May 23rd. Now, is that music that, was kind of like just sitting in your vault? Like, hey, this is just an idea that I've had for a while, or was that something fresh? Like, how did that come about?
Well, not much of it was completely fresh. Basically, I've lived in quite a few different places in Warrington over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to write pieces named after particular areas of Warrington where I have lived, like Busey Fragments and Stockton East Polyphony. And each piece sums up the place that it's named after in some way, or some kind of event that took place in that place. So all the pieces are named after a place in Warrington. That's why it's called Parochial Chamber Works, because they are parochial in that sense, and they are chamber works as well. But yeah, I've done another album as well called Redeemer, which has got nothing to do with naming things after Warrington or anything. It's a separate thing altogether, which is, I suppose, more avant-garde, a little bit more experimental, but shorter tracks. The Parochial Chamber Works is, most of those tracks are pretty long, drawn-out tracks, but I am still pleased with them. But they're pretty long, drawn-out tracks, yeah. There was a Volume 3 as well, Music Inspired by Parochial Chamber Works Volume 3. But it's only the first one that came out on CD. Yeah. Have you got CDs out of your...
Say that again?
Are the CDs available of your music, your own stuff?
Oh, so no, I actually don't have any CDs. Quick plug for me. So last year I put out a instrumental tape, a beat tape or producer project, whichever you want to call it. It was called The Resume, and it was just mostly instrumentals that I just produced in my bedroom on my laptop. And
Electronic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, electronic. But I was like really touching on like different styles, so like lo-fi, some R&B, some pop, and it was really really fun putting together that tape because like you, it sounds like you have a very much a big appreciation for various styles of music, and that's kind of where I was going with that project. And there's no CDs, but it is available on streaming platforms. Same thing with Marco's music, streaming platforms. He has a lot of music on SoundCloud, actually.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to get you the links to our stuff.
Yeah. SoundCloud's good, but I do generally prefer YouTube. It's to do with sound quality. What I've noticed about SoundCloud, you have to convert it to MP3 before it's uploaded. So there's a little bit of quality loss, sound quality.
Yeah.
Whereas with YouTube, it goes straight from a WAV file to a MOV file. Mm-hmm. Sorry to be talking about files, but there's no loss of sound quality. It sounds a little bit better on YouTube, in my opinion.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because the thing, like what I always tell people when it comes to music is, while streaming platforms are a good thing, I don't think they're inherently bad. But the thing is though is that when it comes to the quality of the music, you'll find that music sounds so much clearer, crisper, and just it has a different type of feel when you listen to it on CD and vinyl as compared to streaming platforms. And can you speak to that? Because I've heard it, from producers and singers, but I also want to hear it from a composer, in classical music. Can you talk about that?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, like I said, if when I upload something to YouTube, there's not much difference between the original sound quality from the software that I used, what you hear. Whereas with SoundCloud or I think Bandcamp as well, it has to be MP3. So there's less zeros and ones, so to speak. It's a compressed sound. It still works. It's still good. I mean, I have got used to MP3 over the years regarding certain stuff, and I have got some music on SoundCloud. But generally, I do prefer YouTube because you don't get that loss of quality.
Yeah.
Which means a lot to me, obviously.
Yeah.
I'd rather it sound as good as a CD would if I was playing a CD or a piece of vinyl, That just has that little bit more depth to it.
Yes.
Bigger sound with a bit more depth to it, yeah.
And then even then, it's different from actually going to see a symphony or orchestra or a chamber live. And I've been to a ton of orchestra concerts. I mean, I would love to go to England one day and check out an orchestra. But if you ever are in the States, I encourage you to come to Charleston and check out the Charleston Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And there's something so special about going to a concert hall, going to an orchestra symphony on a Friday, Saturday evening, and just being in that room, that space with everyone, and y'all are enjoying this moment, this experience of live music. There's no lyrics. It's all just 100 musicians on stage playing various string instruments, and there may be some percussion, there may be some horns, and there's a conductor kind of like leading the way. I think of it as literally going to the movies, except there's no movie screen, there's no actors. It's just, this is all musicians and it's all audio.
Yeah. And when I very first started going to classical concerts, I was surprised at how loud it was. Because you think of a rock concert, obviously, where they have a PA, Van Halen or whatever it is, and yet some orchestral concerts I've been to have been almost deafening. They've been so loud. We have that many brass players and that many percussion players really playing at high volume. It's very, very powerful. Surprisingly loud at times, classical music in concert. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And, being in the United Kingdom, I know it is not hard to find an orchestra or a symphony so yeah, that's on my bucket list, to go to the United Kingdom and just go to an orchestra concert. I'm pretty sure it's fantastic.
Well, we have, in London, we have the proms, which is a traditional thing that goes back over 100 years. Well, it's roughly a month, I think, about 30 days of just classical music at the Albert Hall in London. So I've never been, I must admit, I've never actually been, but it's always on TV, broadcast. That's very enjoyable. So I'd recommend that if you ever do come to the UK.
Oh, yes, sir. I definitely will put that on my list. So, Louis, we've covered a lot, man, about you and your music career. And the thing is, you're just getting started. I know you had experience playing in rock bands, but as a composer, you're just getting started, man. So, can you talk a little bit about, your plans for next year? Because, we're closing out 2024. So talk about some things that you have planned for 2025.
Yeah. Well, to get more live performances, a lot of nearly all of it's digital. So what I'm working on a piece for solo piano now. I'm about halfway through it. And I want to get that performed by a human being, you know what I mean? Instead of it being digital. And a string quartet as well. In the States, in the US, you have the Kronos Quartet, I think they're New York based. Then there's the Arditi String Quartet. I'm not sure, I think, where they're based actually. There's actually so many string quartets, performing string quartets. So when I've completed my string quartet, I'll be sending it out left, right, and centre to try and get it performed. And I know a few concert pianists as well. who've expressed an interest in performing some of my piano music as well. So that's for next year. I'd say getting live performances, but working on more film scores as well. I'd like to do that as well.
Well,
You know, those two, they're the main things. But try and get in contact with some big shot directors. You know, instead of a student at Plymouth University, you know, something like that. You know, a big shot director, and get into film scores and get some, you know, human performances of my piano piece and string quartet. I think they're the main things I've got on my mind at the moment. Probably, hopefully, will happen next year.
yes, sir. I mean, it sounds like you're on your way, man. I mean, just keep doing what you're doing and staying consistent, staying creative, and here at Just Music, we're rooting for you. You know, and we all of our artists, all of our creatives that come on the show. You know, once you come on here, you're always welcome back. This is great discussion. And one more thing I want to ask you before we get out of here, because we've seen it, and you talked about digital a little bit. So this rise of AI, right, in music, what's your take on it?
It's a bit frightening, because I'll tell you why it's a bit frightening. On YouTube, briefly, there was a new Pink Floyd album.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really a Pink Floyd album, but it was an AI created Pink Floyd album, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, and then I thought, oh my God, it's AI. It's not even Pink Floyd, it's AI, and yet I really enjoyed it. And I thought, oh dear, you'd expect it to be emotionless, have no emotion in it, be just a kind of throw together. Someone's obviously programmed the AI to say, okay, AI is aware of all the previous Pink Floyd albums, and it's come up with this as a kind of their imagining of what a new Pink Floyd album would be. And it's really good. I thought it was really good. I thought to myself, am I going to go out and buy that? I'm a big Pink Floyd fan anyway. I thought, I've got to go out and buy that. But then again, it's AI. So I thought, if it can be that convincing, oh dear, maybe that's not such a good thing.
Right.
I found that a bit frightening. So I'm not really sure what to think, to be honest.
Yeah, man, it's interesting for sure, because it's like it's ruining the integrity of the artist and of their work.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent in a way. Yeah, regarding the employment of musicians, yeah, it's not a good thing at all, is it? Obviously, someone like myself, I don't want to be, replaced by AI. But yeah, sorry, carry on. You were saying, no.
Yeah, no, but I agree with everything that you just said as well. Because I mean, for someone to program AI to, sound exactly like Pink Floyd, and it's not Pink Floyd, that's a problem. And yeah, and I know that a lot of artists have been speaking out. They've been, putting together plans to, file lawsuits and things against these people, because it's necessary. I mean, it's already. I mean, like we said at the beginning of this interview, that it's already in the beginning. It's already hard to make a sustainable income with music, and so with this AI, this thing continuing to become more and more popular, it's like, man, it sounds like it's creating more challenges than it is creating solutions at this moment. But I mean, we just have to continue to do our due diligence and put the work in and advocate, and also, wait and hope and pray.
I think, like most inventions, it will have its benefits, definitely. Regarding technology, science, technology, it will definitely have its benefits, especially quantum computing. God, when that comes around. But there'll be the downside of it as well, I suppose. I suspect, regarding the arts. who's doing what and who wrote what. It might get confusing at some point in the future.
Right.
Because it's not that straightforward. If I can be emotionally moved by an AI Pink Floyd album, I'm thinking, oh my God, that's a bit frightening. What does that say? But so it'll be interesting to see what unfolds in the next few decades.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but thank you, Louis Gill. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the Just Music podcast. This was incredible. I really had to get you on and talk to you because, talking to a composer and somebody that's as knowledgeable about classical music as you, and then you're based in another country and you're based in the UK. I knew this would be a very special episode. So thank you so much for coming on, man. I really do appreciate you. Any last thoughts you want to leave before we get out of here?
Only that I really appreciate this, and thank you, Jaden, for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been very, very interesting. I think you've covered everything. I can't think of any specific questions that you've missed out. You've covered everything, so I do appreciate this a lot.
Yes, sir. Of course. Thank you. And to the Just Music podcast, thank y'all so much for continuing to listen in. Every Wednesday, we're going to be releasing episodes. We are back. We apologize for the long break, but we are back. Be sure to follow us on Instagram under Just Music Podcast. That's JUS Music Podcast. We're also on Facebook under JUS Music Podcast FB. And you can also email us to get in touch with us. If you're a creative in music and you want to chat with us, learn more about us, and see about getting on the podcast, email us at justmusicp@gmail.com. That's jusmusicp@gmail.com. We're also going to leave a link to Louis Music in the description of this episode. Leave a link to his Facebook, his YouTube channel, so y'all can go check him out, support him and his music. It was awesome having him on the show. And yeah. Oh, and a couple more things. Our donation link. We have a donation link in the description of this episode. So if you feel it in your heart to donate to the Just Music podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. We don't charge people to come onto the podcast. But Marco and I are always thinking of new ways to innovate and do better with this podcast, especially when it comes to how we engage with people through social media and how we engage through events that we host in Charleston, South Carolina. And so a donation would be greatly appreciated. Thank y'all so much. Do all that great stuff. And by the time you hear this episode, it'll actually be a day before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays to everyone. And thank you. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.